Hello and welcome to Square Dot's podcast. Today we're gonna have a chat with Howie and Jamie from Oneclock. They have created an alarm clock that stands out for its unique music, made specifically to wake you up. Stick around till the end and get the chance to listen to some of the tracks that the clock uses to wake you up. So, we're up. Hello Howie, hello Jamie from Oneclock. Could you explain a bit what your company is, who you are, and what's your product?
Sure. My name is Howie Rubin. This is Jamie Kripke. And Oneclock is our venture. We're starting out on crowdfunding, and Oneclock is a minimal analog alarm clock used to wake you up gently through sonic science, through sound. The start of it is about 2 years ago, and live on Kickstarter since early February. And maybe just go into a little bit about the background of it, and then we can talk through some of the product features and listen to some music.
Yeah, sure. So, you've taken a road that most people wouldn't advise when creating a new product, which is taking something that already exists and that has been around for a long time, and you tried your best to improve it. So congrats on your success on your Kickstarter campaign.
So we appreciate that. It's I don't know, for us the path here felt like a natural fit. The product, and I want to let Jamie speak to that because the initial idea and concept really came from his experience and resonated with me. But in terms of entering a space where there are countless options, it's interesting. I think that from the perspective of users and clocks, most people have just accepted how alarm clocks are, and there's so many other better options, and that's really why we headed down this path. And the more people that we connected with and spoke to and just heard it resonating with others, well, as Jamie likes to say, we had a guaranteed user group of 2 to start with, and from there it just kind of kept on mushrooming, and it really struck a chord with people, and we felt like we were onto something.
So could you give an explanation of what it is and what it looks like, because it has a dope design?
Yeah, sure. So it's really the design. We've tried in every way to keep as simple as possible, and that sort of started with a really basic sketch of a rectangle with 2 circles on it. The rectangle being derived from the golden ratio, which, if you're familiar with that, it's a pretty common ratio that's found in nature, it's found in art, it's found in music, and it's kind of known for having just a pleasing proportion. The very first sketch of the clock was a golden ratio rectangle with rounded corners, with a larger circle for the clock face and a smaller circle for the speaker, because we knew that all we really wanted this clock to do was to tell you the time and to wake you up with nice music. And so if you can imagine, it's like an extruded aluminum chassis, and then the front is solid wood and the back is solid wood. And then cut out of the front wood panel is a larger opening for a clock face, and then a smaller opening for the speaker. As you probably know, to design something simple is actually quite complex, because the more you want to get rid of, the kind of trickier it gets, especially now in our current manufacturing climate. It's kind of geared towards things having lots of features and lots of bells and whistles, and things being engineered for cost instead of for quality. So does that answer the question well enough? Do you feel like you got a picture of it?
Yep.
I should also point out that, and I mentioned this earlier, but it was brief, that the clock itself, the clock face, it's an analog clock, so it's not a screen. It actually has 2 hands that move on a dial. And the impetus for this project was really to keep technology out of the bedroom. And we really wanted to push against this idea of having a screen. And as you go through the manufacturing process and working with different partners, they say, it's so much easier for us to just drop a screen in here. It would solve a lot of problems. It could be touch screen, and you can charge your phone with it, and it's got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And this exercise of sticking to the core design aspects, as Jamie spoke to, it's really something to hold on to, and it's for ourselves and for other partners that we've been. It's been this I don't want to say struggle, but it's been something that we constantly have to go back to of like, what's the intention of the product and how do you keep on editing and editing and editing to get it down to its bare essence of what it was intended to be. So all those things that I mentioned earlier, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, screens, et cetera, all removed. And, you know, we've had some comments of people saying, so just a clock? And we're like, yep. Yep, just a really well-made clock with high-end components that will last, you know, hopefully a lifetime and passed along in an age where there's a lot of, especially in electronics, a lot of disposed of items that don't get to see, you know, many years past their inception.
I believe you offer a 20-year warranty, right?
Correct. Yeah. The other thing we could also say too is that the way it's designed and built is it's sort of like it's engineered to be repaired if needed. You can take it apart and put it back together because it's all held together with screws, whereas a lot of things are built with some sort of plastic enclosure that's often glued shut and never intended to be repaired. So that was definitely like one of our goals was to build something that would last a really long time. And if it does need a repair, it's designed to handle that.
I think that's a pretty good goal. You know, like you said, now many things are, we could say, made intentionally to break after a while. So making something that lasts really makes it stand out. And what I wanted you to explain as well is the music that it plays is really special as well, right? It's made by great musicians. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
We just wanted to come at this with totally fresh eyes and figure out, what are the sounds that science would tell us are good to wake up to? And we actually worked with a partner of ours named Eli, who's a sonic strategist. And he already knows a lot about how humans respond to different sounds. But what we did was we worked with Eli, and he took the knowledge he already had, which was extensive, but then he also looked into like, what are the sounds that we're all waking up to on these different clocks? And what we learned was that there really wasn't any specific kind of music that was composed and designed specifically to wake you up from sleep. And so what we did was we worked with Eli to create a sonic brief is what we call it. And then we shared that with our musicians who, they then work within those constraints. And there's some rules set out around what the music sounds like and how it affects your brain and your body when you're waking up in the morning. Once we got the sonic brief done, we just passed it off to a musician and said, hey, we're making this clock. We want to wake people up with some really peaceful, beautiful sounds. Here's some rules to follow. Otherwise, go nuts and make whatever you want. And we were lucky enough to connect with John Natchez, who's a touring member of the War on Drugs. And he kind of just took it and ran with it. And he came back a few months later with all this incredible music that we'd never heard before. It was pretty special. But yeah, the music that wakes you up on this clock is unlike any other music in that it's composed specifically to wake you up. Like, I don't think there's any other music out there that has been made this way.
And some of the parameters that we gave the musician, and by the way, the sonic brief that we gave to John was open and free. So for a musician, they felt like they had a lot of opportunity to create. And John's plays over 20 different instruments. He scores soundtracks for movies, and as Jay mentioned, a number of different bands that are high profile. And the basic parameters that we gave were that make sure that the melody is simple, and they would build in tempo and intensity. And then from there, we gave some decibel parameters and frequency and such. And I think we came back initially with maybe about 10 tracks. Mm-hmm. And we had a user group of ourselves and our daughters sat around a table for the first listening party, which is pretty cool. We pared it down to 7 tracks. And then from there, we actually created an AI filter that's built on the software at the clock. And essentially what that does is it views each composition, breaks it down into stems, which are effectively like the different layers of a song, or the instruments for that matter. A voice could be an instrument as well. And then each day it randomizes that any song that it chooses from those 7, and it will raise or lower the volume and adjust for each one of those instruments. So one day on a track, you might hear the piano come a little bit more front forward and the guitar sit a little bit further back. And then that would change every time you heard that track. So the clock is actually intended that you never hear the same songs or the same sounds ever twice.
What were some of the challenges that you encountered while manufacturing and designing engineering? 'Cause you did mention manufacturing for quality was much harder than that. Manufacturers advised you to put a screen in there, right?
Yeah.
So what was like the hardest thing?
I would say the hardest thing was when we decided we wanted to make an analog style clock.
Yep.
We could not find an analog clock core, and we looked everywhere. They exist, but they didn't exist the way we wanted them to, which is they could be hardwired into the wall and you could have an alarm functionality. So after many, many dead ends on that front, we came up with the new approach of trying to make a clock out of a stepper motor, which is technology that's used frequently in the dashboard gauges on cars. This particular stepper motor is actually a clock stepper motor, but it's a very different kind of mechanism. The cool thing about it is you can run it from you can write software for it, and you can run it. You can design it to run however you want. You just have to write the software to make it do what you want. So that opened up a lot of doors for us because we could now have this very efficient, well-made clock core that could do a number of things by us programming it. But it took a long time to get to that, to make that discovery.
Yeah. And it's that moment where you land on the part, you're like, I think we got it. And it could have easily been a year
ago.
And the way it works essentially is the board, it has a quartz crystal on it and a real-time, it's RTC, it's a real-time clock chip. And the two of those essentially know what time it is. And then they tell the stepper motor where to move the hands.
No tick sound, right?
That was almost number one on our list. I'm not sure there was like 5 things at number one priority, but for sure, no ticking sound. Yeah.
But that took a while to solve too.
I guess. How did you solve it? Is there...
Well, our electrical engineer solved it. What he did was he ended up, instead of having the minute hand move once every minute, he chopped that minute up into much smaller segments. So it just moves a very, very tiny distance. The stepper motor is an electrical device. And so what he did was he created like a curve that smooths out the motion of the hand. It applies a small amount of current to start, and it starts the hand moving, and then it ramps up and then slowly ramps down, and it makes it smoother. And that's what avoids the ticking sound.
Yeah. Smooth takeoff, smooth landing at each movement.
Yeah.
You mentioned 5 priorities.
Yeah.
What were they?
Well, it might not be exactly 5, but I mean, it would say, well, number 1, it had to look good. Number 2, it had to sound good. Number 3, it had to last a really long time. Number 4, it had to plug into the wall. And number 5, it just had to be like as simple as can be, with
it's dead easy to use.
Just, like intuitive and easy. And, we talked for a long time about trying to do this without any sort of instruction manual.
Well, I do have to say that it's hard to guess that you have to press a knob for 2 seconds to set an alarm.
I know.
So I guess you didn't quite get the no instructions.
Yeah.
But
we got
everything
close.
Else.
Yeah,
right.
we got close.
Yeah, definitely.
The nice thing about a clock, though, is this is like something that people will buy once and have for a long time. So it's like anything you have that's slightly technical. Yeah. You learn how to use it.
You read it once, and then you use it for the next 2 years, and you're rolling.
When did you come up with the idea, and how long did it take you to actually make it?
Oh man. Well, it was probably 3-4 years ago when my wife and I decided to get our phone out of our bedroom, and then I started looking for a clock, and I couldn't find one that I wanted. And then I started doing sketches of it, just of something that I would want. And I kind of kicked around the idea of actually making it, but then I ran into a friend who is in manufacturing, who offered to help me make it. And as soon as I told him about my idea, he basically said, yeah, let's do it. And that's kind of like the real beginning, when it was actually like, okay, now we're going to actually make this clock. And that was probably over 2 years ago. And then Howie and I have been working on this for about 2 years as well.
And once we brought it in, I'll call it January of 20, once we decided to do everything in the US, or even more to the point, do it Colorado based for the most part, everything started to really move quickly in terms of engineering speed.
Yeah. You manufacture in the US as well?
We do.
Yeah. Everything that has gone into this clock, apart from a few components that we can't get here in the States, is within like a 30-minute drive of our office.
You want to have a listen?
Yeah, of course.
Might be cool to just hear the gearing as well for the motor, like when you're actually moving the hands. And I'll let Jamie talk through it as he has the clock in his hands right now.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right, we'll see. Okay, here I'm gonna adjust the time right now, so you'll be able to hear the stepper motor moving. You hear that?
Not really, but
It's because it's silent.
Okay.
I'll play some music for you.
Yes, please.
Welcome to Music Mode, where you can listen to all of the songs on your Oneclock. Press the wake knob at any point to advance through the songs.
How's that volume? Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to switch to the next one just to give you a little variety. And John didn't do all this music himself. He actually tapped a whole group of musicians that he works with regularly to kind of bring in different instruments, different vocals, a little bit of everything. But he was very much the ringleader and the organizer of all the music. So it's got his fingerprints all over it, but he had a lot of help. I'm gonna go to the next one. Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sweet, you know. And there's a little setting on the clock called music mode where it just lets the user play through all of their 3-minute samples of the 7 bass tracks. Some people that have been testing it will turn that functionality on and be in bed at night before they go to sleep, and listen to music for 20 minutes, then turn it off. So it's actually served a couple different purposes. We're really happy with that feature.
Cool. And I mean, the microphone chopped a little bit of some instruments, like highs and lows. But it sounds great.
Cool. Appreciate that. Cool. Well, thank you so much for the time today, and everybody who's listening. We are 15 days to go on Kickstarter, and we hope you'll join us there. You can also check out more about the clock at oneclock.co. That's .co. Lots of information on Kickstarter, as you can imagine. As most campaigns have long pages, we've got some really cool informative videos on there, some information about the musicians for sure, and the functionality, and all the design and build features we spoke of earlier. So we're just incredibly appreciative for all the support we've received to date and feedback, and look forward to bringing this product to market.